Welcome to the Business of Drinks, where we go behind the bottle, interviewing beverage innovators and icons about how they built their businesses.
We take a data-driven approach, analyzing the brands, products, and categories that get customers and consumers excited.
And we cover several drinks categories, from wine, beer, and spirits to non-alcoholic drinks, as well as THC, adaptogen, and functional beverages.
So whether you're working in drinks or just interested in the stories behind your favorite brands, join us each week as we explore how companies are unlocking growth at every stage in the game.
Thanks for joining us, and let's dive in. Welcome back to Business of Drinks. I'm Erica Ducey.
And I'm Caroline Lamb. Today, we are exploring one of the most fascinating brands in the fast-growing non-alcoholic beverage space, Non, N-O-N. It's quickly becoming known as one of the first brands to disrupt non-alcoholic wine, but it's not just an alternative to wine. It's really an entirely new category that's defining what premium non-alc drinks can be. At the center of it all is the founder, Aaron Trotman, who I sat down with today.
Yeah, so Aaron's journey with Non is wild. He didn't come from a traditional drinks background. He was a DJ, a barbershop owner, and even dabbled in men's cosmetics before stumbling into the world of non-alc beverages. But when he discovered the high-end, chef-driven non-alc pairings at fine dining restaurants, he saw an opportunity. His question was simple: why can't you buy these in a bottle? And the answer is because it's incredibly difficult to make non-alc beverages that have the complexity, structure, and depth of wine. But Aaron figured it out.
Not only did Aaron figure out how to get the juice in the bottle, he figured out how to get his bottles into the most prestigious restaurants in the world. Non isn't about mimicking wine, as in a Cabernet Sauvignon or a Muscadet. It's about crafting something entirely new. He uses a culinary approach, taking real ingredients to make a product that has the same complexity as wine in terms of tannin, acid, salt, fruit. Aaron's commitment to quality is relentless, and I really loved how he put it. If someone is going to pay $30 for a bottle of his product, that's essentially an hour of their work life. So if they're trading an hour of their life for his product, it has to deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. And these products do deliver. I've had the salted raspberry and chamomile flavor, and I can attest that it is delicious and it pairs very well with food. But even beyond the bottle, Aaron has been very strategic in building the brand through on-premise accounts. So he bootstrapped Non at first and sold directly to top-tier restaurants right from the beginning. And that really helped give the brand recognition and traction among sommeliers and beverage managers. And the strategy worked. Now, Non is expanding globally, producing more than 500,000 bottles a year, and has signed a major distribution deal with Southern Glazers in the US.
What I found really fascinating during this conversation was how he's managed to build credibility in the high-end natural wine space, which isn't easy for a wine brand, let alone a non-alc brand. So I think that's a testament to Non's transparency and the value of that transparency, because every ingredient is real, it's traceable, and it's handled with similar or the same care as crafting a fine wine. Aaron's been really vocal about a need for an industry-wide collaboration. He understands that when creating a new category, you can't do it alone, and he doesn't really see his competitors as competitors. He thinks they all need to work together to help define what this premium non-alcoholic category is and will be.
Definitely. I mean, this conversation is a must listen for any entrepreneur in the drinks industry who is looking to build brand and build community of professionals. Aaron shares insights on everything from scaling a business to navigating funding rounds to why he refuses to compromise on quality, even when it would be easier or more profitable. He's a real innovator, and his story is both inspiring and full of practical lessons.
So if you are curious about the future of non-alcoholic beverages, the premiumization, and what it takes to build a globally recognized brand from scratch, this episode will.
Here's our conversation with Aaron Trotman, founder of Non. And now, a word from our sponsor. Discover the future of craft spirits March 10th through 12th in Tucson, Arizona at the American Craft Spirits Convention and Expo. You'll join producers, vendors, and industry leaders to discuss the latest production trends, advocacy initiatives, and the big topic on everyone's mind right now, how to stay competitive in 2025. And on top of all that, you'll have a really good time. Register online at americancraftspirits.org/BOD. Follow the link for your Business of Drinks $25 discount.
Aaron, welcome to the Business of Drinks.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
Oh, I'm good today. And how are you in the future?
The future is as bad as yesterday and as good as today could possibly be so far this morning. So Monday morning here, 9 a.m. Everything's all good.
Well, we're happy you're starting your day with us. So we've got to jump right in. I've got a lot to ask you. So let's start at the beginning. Tell me your background, personal, professional. What led you to founding Non?
So Non was a beautiful accident. I often say I jumped off a cliff and we're building the plane on the way down, the rickety plane on the way down. But it was an accident, to be honest with you. So when in 2017, we were in London with me and my wife, and we were doing like food tours of Paris and like ticking off the world's 50 best and where the Bourdain eat. So you get that street side of things, and then you get the ones that are in all the articles. And then we're at the Clove Club in London having a meal, and my wife doesn't drink, and she got the non-alcoholic pairing there. And I was like, whoa, this is super cool. The reason why I had the non-alcoholic pairing or took a drink is because the sommelier came over with a port off an old sunken ship from 1930, I think he said. It was in 2017, so I might be a little bit vague with the details, but honestly, it should have stayed at the bottom of the ocean. And I was like, what have you got? And I was like, oh, this is super cool. We kept sort of ticking off the bucket list of restaurants, whether it be in Australia, Japan, UK, etc. And I was like, why can't you buy these style of drinks in a bottle? Turns out the reason why you can't is because it's extremely difficult. It's somewhat insane to do it. But we unlocked it and figured it out and got to scale. And before that, I had a somewhat embarrassing and failing men's hipster sort of cosmetics brand. And then I've also had some retail in the sense that I had barbershops as well. So I kind of did that, got into the physical footprint, and then sort of fell upwards into this, to be honest with you. And before that, I was 10 years of a very reputable job of being a DJ. So I learned how to deal with a lot of different people in a lot of different scenarios. Jack of all trades, master of none, but grit and tenacity and being able to figure things out and pushing boundaries is what I've always liked to do.
That's wonderful. So you've obviously had the entrepreneurial bug already.
Mm-hmm.
So you're tasting all these great NA pairings on your food tour of the world. What was the first step that you had to take when you were getting serious about producing Non and getting it available for purchase?
So first thing was branding. I was working on a more high level cosmetics brand at the time, and I was trying to and I'd use an agency. They were called The Company You Keep here in Melbourne. And then I was working on that and then kind of fell into this at the same time. And so the branding was the first step. The initial names are awful and terrible. I've still never repeated them to anyone because they're too embarrassing, some of the initial names, but at the bottom of the list.
Exclusive if you want.
Maybe if I do okay, it can be in my memoir one day. That's when the world will find out what it is, because it won't be as embarrassing. So anyway, Non was at the bottom of the list. And they're like, that's the one. And I remember sitting in the old factory and I was having like an existential crisis going, I was already set on this other name and all these other things. So anyway, the branding was done. The ingredients were somewhat locked away and locked in. And then it took about 3 months to get the product into a state to show people. And it got to the point where it was like, 30, 40 iterations in a home kitchen to go, okay, what's the formula? How do we scale this? Can the supplier meet demand? All those sorts of things. And then going into a very pirate-like production that, to be honest with you, it was somewhat illegal to actually get product into market, but you got to start somewhere. And it just went from there to getting product in, tasting with people, and then orders came in straight away when we first went out to the market. And I didn't know at the time, I had no idea, but NA pairings are really difficult to make in a restaurant. They don't last very long. And, to do 10, 12 of them in a course, even if we can do some of that heavy lifting for them, they were like, how much have you got in the car right now? I was like, I have it to you next week. I didn't have any labels. I didn't have any glass. I didn't have anything. And just printed some labels, put them on bottles, got 4 accounts on the first day, and we're off. And that was it. That's just how it happened. It was a lot of dumb luck. And some of my best friends in hospitality are like, what have you been working on? And I'm like trying to explain it to them. They're like, this is the dumbest idea ever. And then I taste it with them. Like, this is really cool. Like, this is a really good idea. And I'm like, is it? I didn't even know if it tasted good anymore. I didn't even want to go front up to the initial meeting because I was like, oh, maybe I'll just sit in the car. You can text me the feedback and then I don't have to deal with it. Because I was already in the hole so much with money as well. I was just like, oh, this could just fail before it starts, but it didn't.
So were you chefing it at the beginning? Or did you have somebody helping you with the recipes when you're testing
I had someone helping me with the recipes. Yeah. So, and then what happened was we outgrew that person and the chef in some ways, because as you scale and you're using only natural ingredients and stuff, you obviously need to be able to balance, but also you need to be like super on it with, it's not a pinch of salt. It's not a pinch of salt. Like, you had to weigh things out, and we had to move product more safely, and, the cleaning routines, and you just have to hire new people as the business grows. So, that's where we landed. And now Nick's our head of beverage, and he's kind of got everything. Well, not kind of, he has got everything that we need to create new recipes, know the product inside and out, how it moves from a 10-litre pot on the bench top on the inductions to getting into our 7,500 litre tank and getting it there safely, and where the critical control points are. Like, we're HACCP certified, so we have to record everything, and like super clean, moving bulk liquids, sterilization, pasteurization, all those things. We needed new people as we went along.
Absolutely. So were you bootstrapping the initial stages of Non, or did you seek external investment?
Yeah, so I bootstrapped the start of it. And then one of my friends, who's a co-founder in the business as well, Josh, he had a hit song, and I won't say which one it is on this, but he had a hit song, and I was like, you probably have some money. I was like, hey, give me $100,000. And he was like, okay. And I was like, oh, all right, sweet. So then that got us going. And then it was kind of helpful to have COVID as well, because we got some money from the government that paid salaries as well. So, and there was some like kickbacks. So it actually helped a lot with the initial start, because we launched in July 2019, and 9 months into the business, we hit COVID. So we had no baseline. We didn't know anything. And then that went pretty quickly. And then I was taking out of our savings, and then we were basically completely broke in February 2021. I think it was in January 2021, my wife goes, hey, where's all of our savings? And I'm like, yeah, about that. but I'm getting investment in the next 30 days. And then to get through the last payroll before the big investment came, when we got the initial investment, I borrowed $20,000 from a staff member because I didn't have any money left. It was all tied up in the business. And we got that paid back. It was like only a 30-day loan. And then we weren't going. And then, we raised significant capital in February 2021. They followed on, invested, I think about 18 months later. We had about 18 months of runway, and now we're raising again at the moment, which will be our final raise to get to profit, essentially.
Wonderful. So we were talking about your first product. What was the first one that you brought out when you got those first 4 accounts? And then walk us through how that range has evolved in terms of format, price, flavors, all of it.
Sure. So the initial release was 1, 2, and 3. So salted raspberry and chamomile, the caramelized pear and kombu, and the toasted cinnamon and yuzu. They were the first 3. Went straight out to market with those, and they all ordered. Non-1 is our best seller. It makes up 45% of our global volume. So generally
really? One.
Just the number 1, yes. Pink bubbles, super easy to understand. It's a really nice entry into the brand. And then you can go on the journey with us because we have 8 SKUs, essentially. We've just done 1 limited edition, and we'll keep doing those probably yearly. But yeah, number 1 is our number 1 seller, closely followed by number 3 because the colours at least match the occasion and what to pair it with food. But yeah, we've only ever been in a 750ml format. I think height is really important in all dining experiences, whether it be the height of the glass or of like the stemmed glass, or whether it be the height of the bottle. I think that if everyone's drinking wine that comes out of a 750ml bottle and someone else isn't, and they get a can poured at their table, I fundamentally don't think that is a like-for-like experience when you're paying the same amount of money. And I think it's really important to stick to that and premiumize the category as best as we can and stick to our guns. And I've stuck to our guns on a lot of things always, and that is one of them.
Absolutely. I think that's a beautiful way to look at it, and probably why people are saying you're the first to disrupt this category, if you will. I'm wondering if you always saw non as a wine alternative, or if it was just a super premium non-alcoholic option.
Yeah, great question. And at the start, it was just like, this is just a super yummy drink. It was just like, this is awesome. But I was like, well, shit, how do we justify the price point? Because it's really expensive to make. And how do we sit in the places that we want to sit? Mm-hmm. So, for lack of better words, it became a wine alternative, and we were the first, and it stuck. I think there potentially is challenges ahead with consumer education, calling it that, for sure. Yeah. But there's no better words for it. Like, I go around on this all the time. I don't think we have competitors. I think we're all in this together. So I got Murray from Muri in the room, and Dash from 3 Spirit, and Charlie from Proxies. And I said, look, guys, like, we need to like normalize the lower language here of this. And yeah, is it wine alternative? Is it an epicurious blend without sounding too stuffy? Like, what is the actual liquid? And you know, I started this business by myself, had no drinks experience. I didn't know what an activation was. It took me like 6 months to try to figure out why activation was spending money in an account. But yeah, you know, when I hired my first sales manager, they were like, why do we exist? We need this and that, and we don't have a vision and a mission. I'm like, we just make really good drinks. That is our vision and our mission. And that really hasn't changed or how we feel. But yeah, from that work though, we actually realized that what a wine alternative is that it has key components of wine. And I didn't know that was the formula that made it work. And we just naturally did it, but it was fruit, tannin, salt, and acid in a really interesting way. So for lack of better words, it's a wine alternative. It actually is what it is. It is an alternative to wine. It's just, it feels a little bit clunky, but there's no better names out there for it. I've heard gastro juice flying around, but in the UK and Australia, gastro is not a very pleasant experience.
Yeah.
But in the US, I've heard that it's not everyone. Not everyone knows what it is. So gastro pubs got away with it, but I don't think gastro juice is going to fly.
I love what you said about you don't have competitors and getting all the people who you see on the same playing field in one room. It's really reminiscent of when we talk about emerging wine regions, how producers band together and they understand that there's strength in numbers instead of just trying to push their own brand. So that really struck me. Sounds like you had this really clear vision of what you wanted. You didn't know exactly how to get there. So how did you decide that the culinary approach was what needed to be so central? Did you know that was what was going to set you apart from, let's not call them competitors, but from other people doing it? Was there brands that you saw that you wished that maybe that is what they were doing?
The simple part of it is that when you use the culinary approach and levels of molecular gastronomy, what happens is you get really good extraction and really interesting flavors. So the culinary approach, like, chefs have the greatest hacks to getting flavor out of things that just the common man doesn't know. And to put it quite simply, is that you won't get the complexity and flavor if you go to a Givaudan or a flavor house like a Dollar and go, hey, I want a raspberry. What they do is they have hundreds, thousands of raspberries, and they all taste like they've done a research focus group with kids in the 80s or 90s, and they all taste like Fruit Loops. Like, none of it actually tastes like a real raspberry. And at the end of the day, it was about quality for me. And I've said this from day one, and I stand by it, is that we have a responsibility as a $30 product that when people may get paid somewhere between $30 to $40 an hour, that if they're going to give us an hour of their life, we need to make the experience really, really good. And that means not taking any shortcuts, building the facility, having control over our ingredients, our suppliers, knowing where it came from, being able to be transparent with our customers, being so transparent that a competitor could walk into here and we'll show them around.
Yeah.
Like, they could into our HQ, like, they could steal our tricks or could put them off, but like, whatever. I don't mind, It's like, if it's going to level up the whole experience for people that don't want to drink, or people that do drink that want something really good as well, which is a lot of our cohort and customers, then, like, just outside of like open sourcing it, like, you don't need to keep the doors closed, and you don't need to do it with competitors either, because you don't want to be the most expensive thing on a shelf in a competitive set. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I think that's what speaks so directly to your consumer, which from my perspective, we'll get into that later, is somebody probably under 40 who cares about quality. They might drink, they might not drink, but they're spending more per serving, let's say, to get something intentional.
Yes.
Before we move on to your path to market, I do want to touch on your branding. It's very minimalistic, but it is super striking. Everyone should go Google it right now. So tell us how the details came together on that. I understand why you chose the 750, and maybe talk us through the actual imagery of your brand, and even down to like the crown capsule.
Yeah. So I think that the twist tops, the crown capsule, I think twist tops are quite ugly, and I think that they look quite cheap. So that was a really simple one for me. Some people say the crown caps look cheap. So I think it's different strokes for different folks. But also at that time, probably more so than maybe what it is now, but natural wine was really having a moment 6 years ago in Australia. And that cap was the standard, and we were living in that pet nanny natural wine world. So that made a lot of sense to do that. Now that's happening in the UK, so it makes a lot of sense. And, the US is probably a couple of years to 2-3 years in, not being an expert in that space, but I feel like it's around that sort of mark. In terms of the branding, it was always, we're going to use real ingredients on the back, so we may as well just put them on the front and be completely transparent about it and talk about what we're doing. So we were really excited to share those ingredients and talk about them and spark interest and sort of weird people out in a way. And the weirding people out is really the whole brand world. And the challenge, it's a challenger brand in many ways in terms of it's dark, it's moody, it's not like all pastels and like aligning your chakras on a hill. Like, that's not what we're doing. It's always been more dark, minimal, space age, out of this world. And for me personally, that's just like the colors that I like. So, may as well do that. And then pretty much as we can, like I don't, unless it's a really good photo, but like there's no wood on our Instagram, the color in all the color of the drink is so pretty. So all the color of in photography is the drink as well. And that's always been very, very intentional. A lot of people don't realize it, but that's what we do. So we're just speaking about the drink. The drink is to highlight it. The ingredients are the hero. Then how it's made is the hero. So for me, it hasn't been building the infrastructure that we have and HQ and all those other wonderful things and the people. Hasn't been hard to market it because we don't have to hide anything. We don't have to fluff anything. It's really genuine. And then attracting really good that helps with attracting really good talent, because they're like, oh, it's so good to be able to work on a brand that has a brand home, and we don't have to bullshit this. We don't have to turn this into something it's not, because look over here but don't look over there. You can just look at everything with us. So that's always been part of the brand, part of the design, minimal. I came from the cosmetics world, so it's not too far from a Byredo bottle or something really high end like that. So it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Even it feels very immersive. And I guess the way that you said there's nothing to hide, it makes sense. You even going on your website, it's called for the US.non-world. And it is like its own little beautiful universe there. So typically, do you think that your customers have an advanced understanding of food and beverage? That's what you're talking about, weeding people out, is people who read your labels, they understand what it means and it speaks to them?
I think they probably have an inclination for discovery and finding new brands. And that's why it's important for us to show up in places where your mind's open to discovery. So yes, I think so. I think they're foodies at heart. But also I think they're generally people that they want something to drink, but they don't want to make any sacrifices in doing so. And that's where we attract drinkers as well.
Okay. Tell me about the stopper.
This little guy nearly broke my heart and soul. I thought I wasn't happy with everything that was on the market. Everything was like the spring-loaded system. They were big, they were clunky. They actually pretty much didn't work. And they all broke, so you throw them away. And I went to an industrial design studio based in Sydney. So we're from Melbourne, but they're in Sydney. He's like one of the smartest guys that I've ever met. I've got the biggest man crush on him. And they gave us all these crazy concepts, and we end up going with the simplest one. It's like, all that other stuff, that's pretty crazy. We'll go with the simple one. The simple one ended up being the hardest, which was really annoying in the end. But we went through about 20 iterations from 3D printing to actually making the mold. And it was, to get the thing perfect, it was like some of the terminology I'd never even heard of before, but we're talking like 0.02 millimeters. So you would scratch it out a little bit so it didn't scratch the neck of the bottle, and then it would completely throw out the seal. And then you go back and it would change something else, and then you had to change the structure of the steel. So it's like 80% aluminium and 20% whatever. You would constantly had to keep adjusting and changing the rubber and everything. Anyway, we got it perfect, and when the production finished and got it, I was actually in London walking around. I had the other stoppers. And the amount of times my backpack and business cards from the day I collected were soggy from having the caps pop off as well.
Yeah.
And then I had those on the first day. And I didn't even realize this at the time, but they were so tight that they can just roll around in your car. And I was like, oh, hang on, we've actually solved another problem here, which was not intended. But basically, how many times have you gone to the park with a sparkling bottle, not finished it, and you get home and it's leaked somewhere in your car or your tote bag or whatever else?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't do that. And also most of those you can't lay them down on the side of your fridge. You can with ours as well. So fridge height was obviously an issue as well. So it worked out great. It's something that I wanted to do. I've got about 5 or 6 other products in the pipeline and in my head that will start to push out this year as well. I think solving problems. And maybe they do for some people and maybe they don't, and maybe not for some people and maybe it's not. But I think it's for me, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, those are all complementary to the non-world, or those are just in your world in general?
It's that, yeah, and it's definitely the brand world as well. Like to create things outside of the bottle and just create beautiful things, whether it be a liquid or a product or a brand home. It's just make great things.
Make things and make them beautiful.
Yes.
So we need to talk about production. Currently, what is your production at? I want to know the story of from the start to where it is now,
Sure.
Because it seems like it's been significant.
Yeah, so it started in a 20-litre pot that was poured into a 20-litre keg. Gallons is about divided by 4, so a 5-gallon keg, I think. Rudimentary numbers. And then we got a fridge off the trading post. It was $75. It was from an old mum and pop store, or we would call them a milk bar here. And it was so hard to get out and heavy because it was like one from the 60s or something that the guy felt sorry for us and got it for free instead of the $75.
That was helpful.
Yeah, but that used to freeze sometimes, which was really annoying. And then it started in a home Breville dehydrator to dehydrate the fruits, and then eventually upgraded that to 4 Breville dehydrators. And that was doing stuff like 12-hour dehydrate, so start at midday, come in at midnight to try to get orders out for the day, because you had to do the prep, then you had to do the brew, then you had to get it into the fridge. Maybe it would freeze, then you had to hand bottle it. So that was the start, and that was honestly about 9 months of that. And then we found a bottler that would take our runs. So that was good. And then the product became a lot safer and a lot bigger. And then now we do all the prep. So whether it be roasting, sous videing, whatever it is, it goes into a hot tank. So I've had that hot tank for, I feel like I got that in 2020, still running, still going great. And then what we'll do is we'll bring up the temperature on that for hot extraction. So everything's pasteurized. And then what we have to do is we have to get out of the food danger zone as quickly as possible. So we need to drop it through a heat exchange, and then it goes into cold tanks as well. And then we start to put the componentry together. For us, it's really important that you can taste everything that's on the front of the label. So that's our promise to our consumers, is that you can taste everything that's on the front. You turn the bottle around, it doesn't change the natural flavor, natural extract, any of that. It's actually the whole ingredient. And it's really clear in the drink when you drink it where everything sits, whether it be at the finish or it be on the nose or it be on the palate. So from that, we did about 200,000 litres last year. We're on track we should easily double that this year to 400,000. So it'll only take maybe 1 or 2 things to go right, and that'll be at 500,000 litres, and then I assume it'll probably be at about 1 million litres after that the following year. So the facility at the moment can produce, we just bought some new tanks, but it can produce about 500,000 right now, but we can double capacity very simply and very easily as well. So we're good to go.
Wow. So you started in Australia.
Yes.
You hit other international markets. What made you choose to expand into the US market?
So started in Australia, signed on the Australian distributor in March 2020, and then that's when COVID hit. And then I was already talking to a guy from Japan. He saw the initial article and he was like, I want to get my own labels and stuff. And I couldn't actually afford a Japanese version of a label, which had to change the nutritional panel. So what happened was overproduced. Basically, COVID hit and we had the biggest production run come back from the bottler that had ever happened. And he said he didn't want stickers, he wanted his own label. So I printed off some stickers because I had all this excess stock, and I like took a photo on a really good angle, and he's like, "Oh, that's so fine. I'll take that stock." And I was like, "Oh shit, we got to pull that one off." That sold out before it got there during COVID. Then Singapore, some guy from Singapore emailed me and he was like, "Hey, I want to distribute." I was like, "Yeah, sounds sick. No worries." And I'm just like, "Who are these psychos taking on stuff in COVID?" And then everything just kept selling out before it gets there. And we've said no to more markets around the world than we've said yes. But obviously, you want to crack it, you've got to crack America. So that we went in where we got that right, and where we still have that right today is that I set us up as the importer into the US. It is expensive, but it also is very helpful as well. And then we started with small distributors, and then it was the end of, well, it's not last year now, at the end of 2023, we signed a national deal with Southern. So now that we have that national deal with Southern Glazers, it's very, very helpful to be able to push and get into the markets and have really good partners along the way as well. So, yeah, that's always been the case. We have staff in the US. We're going to be adding a lot more this year. And yeah, the US is really the opportunity. I was surprised when we launched, though. So we did the launch dinner at 11 Madison Park in New York. I've had tougher gigs, but that one was okay. And that was terrifying, actually, because I hadn't had any experience with the US press. And there were some like heavy hitters there from New York Times and stuff. And I was like, oh, just don't be a dumb Australian and say the wrong thing. So anyway, I think I got that through that one with the skin on my teeth. And, but I was so surprised on that trip. There was no non-alc programs on menus. And that was 2022, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, that was 2022, dry January 2022. And probably over the last 18 months, when I was last there in the US was in June, and then all beverage directors and sommeliers were like, we need to do something about this. So it still took another 18 months from there. But Australians are generally seen as alcoholics, and we have every single menu here has got a wine option. It's got a couple of non-alcoholic beer options, some non-alcoholic cocktail options on every single menu. And I was just blown away that the US was like behind us on that. And the UK is probably the most advanced. But in saying that, it's important to go in. It's important to learn the market early, and it's important to lose some money and try to figure it out. And it's been to our advantage for sure to go in a bit earlier than probably we should have. But in any business, in any facet of the business, there's no right time. You just do it and you figure it out. So that's what the US has been for us. And yeah, obviously the opportunity there. There's 25 million Australians, you know, there's more than that in California. So what are you going to do? You got to go.
You got to go. You got to seek the opportunity. So you're partnered with Southern. To my knowledge, you are not in much chain retail at all. Is that still accurate, or is that changing?
We're not, no. So we are in some regional chains. So from like a Molly Stones to a Nugget Market, Bristol Farms has just added us as well, but not big chain stores, no. And the reason for that is that I believe that is the final destination for a brand. And while we've got such a great tasting product and liquid and probably a flavor advantage, and we actually are offering a really good solution for the on-premise and independent off-premise as well, and independents just in general, I'd rather stay independent and support independent people as well. So I think there's also the point of there's still price sensitivity, and I said it earlier, but you want to meet your customers when they're in that discovery mindset. So for me, it makes more sense that we're in those premium independents, if you will, and regional chains over maybe a big box retailer, where you start to then get into tit for tat on pricing wars and all those sorts of things. And I'm just like, the risk there is that you may go into, it's probably, from my understanding, I think it's a little bit less scary in the US, but if you go into the duopoly here of Coles or Woolworths, you're basically killing your entire credibility. And you've got to be really careful with that. And then your business, or 50% of your volume, is in the hands of one customer. You lose that customer, then you're responsible for having to lay people off as well. So it's not a very sustainable business model, I don't think. So I'd rather be spread further and wider in the best places than just going, hey, let's go all in on this retailer or chain. But where the US is different is, if you get a Whole Foods, it's my understanding anyway, if you get a Whole Foods, everyone's like high fives, like awesome, like congratulations, you made it, but that's not the case here in Australia. And there are certain chains in the UK as well, where if you've got a Waitrose, they'll probably high five, but if you've got a Tesco, they'll be like, it's over, and we've still got so much work to do to recruit and get our right consumers, because there's plenty of them out there. There's still plenty to go after, and you may as well choose where you want to go first.
Yeah, I think there's nuance to retailers here too, which
yes.
will become apparent.
Yes.
So how has the reception as a whole in the US been versus the reception when you launched in Australia? Was it different? Was it the same?
Pretty much the same. I think launching in the US was probably too early, so maybe the reception was not as favorable in some ways, but also we still always went after the top accounts as well. So we don't make life easy for ourselves, from production to the stopper to the accounts that we go after. We're not interested in doing it the easy way. There was a little bit of pushback, like, what's the point? But you're always going to have that. You're like, why is it this? And it has no alcohol in it. It's like, why are you putting alcohol on a pedestal? Like, alcohol is actually super cheap to make. Like, wine grapes cost nothing. Base ethanol is basically free. Like, and food's really expensive. It's like, what'd you pay last time to get a punnet of raspberries? Actually, what did you pay for a punnet of raspberries last time you bought them?
A ton of money. I have a toddler, and I swear, like, he's gonna eat me out of my house in berries alone. Probably like $7. I don't know, a lot.
Yeah. So we have a punnet of at least a punnet of raspberries in non-one in a bottle. Plus we freeze dry it as well. Plus I pay labor and wages to actually extract the flavor as well. So you're talking $10 to $12 of that bottle is just raspberries, real raspberries. Now you can do the shortcut and get the flavor house, and it'll cost you 3 cents for a drop, but it tastes like shit. So not interested. Yeah.
That's unbelievable to me, the cost that you just estimated there. That sounds even low, maybe.
Well, it's not just getting the raw material, it's actually adding the process as well. So dehydrating an orange and then adding labor cost to it, and then you bottle it and you transport it and do all those sorts of things. So it is an expensive process to do. Plus you've got to pay rent, you've got to pay electricity, pay your overhead to the brand home. Like, it's not like that simple.
No, and it seems like you're really dedicated to that part. So from an outsider's perspective, it doesn't seem like you would ever scale back either the cost that it takes to make it in terms of raw material or labor. Do you see that scaling forward? Do you want to offer an ultra premium product?
I do, yes. And I have some conversations going to find the right person on that ultra premium side of things. It's not close enough or ready enough to say anything yet, but there's definitely, I was like, where can we take this next? How far can we push these boundaries next? And add credibility, and also just set a standard. I think setting a standard is really important, and the responsibility that we have in, if we do well, it means that everyone else has to do better and use better ingredients and give consumers a better product as well. And if Muri does really well, awesome, that's great for us too. because they're doing all the same things. So for me, it's other people doing well is really good in the category, as long as they're like making really good quality liquids. Because I don't know, you might have a Chablis at dinner and then you have a Pinot, or you might start on a really big, heavy IPA and then have a Guinness. Like, I don't need you to just drink our product all through all the time.
Fair enough. That's admirable to say. So what has impressed me most since I learned about Non? I learned about it from a really savvy buyer friend of mine in Detroit who carries your product in the wine bar that she buys for. And you've seemed to penetrate a really exclusive natural wine space. So want to know how you did that. Yeah, just tell us how you did that.
I don't know, to be honest with you. It's pretty cool for sure, and I'm really proud of that. I think that probably I would, without knowing who your friend is or talking to those people directly, I would say that there's the geekiness of knowing absolutely everything about it, that it sat on lees, and it was this and carbonic and blah, 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 blah. I think it's probably because there's a similar story and traceability through our product that they can get behind, attach to. And then also, I think there's probably anyone that you got two ideas of natural wine. You're either the person that comes from the world where it's a mistake and it's in a bottle and it's really cool and interesting because it's a mistake, or that's like, this is exactly how we intended it to be. There's no, and it's really about weeding out your senses, having a new flavor experience, and exploring things. So for us, we probably tick all those boxes for a natural wine drinker. And then also, again, depending on who it is, they want to be ahead of the curve. And sometimes the weirder and funkier it is, and they take it, they're the early adopter, tastemaker of the group. And we probably fall into that world as well for them. So I think it might make sense. And I don't know how we did it, but I'm glad that we did.
There you are. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about how you think you gained credibility, but I think you said it right there with the traceability and how that appeals to the geekiness of wine drinkers, which is undeniable. So moving forward into the media I've been seeing about Non. So lately, I've been seeing you pop up in a lot of high-profile traditional media like Rolling Stones and Forbes. Can you tell us what forms of media / social media have been successful for your brand?
Yeah, so they all play a role for sure. The best article that we had was one recently in Food and Wine, and it was this non-alcoholic rosé is so good it fooled a rosé drinker, and we see the website traffic from that, and it turned into a lot of sales because with press you have the affiliate links to get anything put up now, and having those things is really good. But there was one customer complaint, and he was like, "This is nothing like a rosé. You should be ashamed of yourself. You pay for this article." It was just like,
I think I saw this. It's hilarious.
He's just like, "How dare you? There's nothing like a rosé." It's like, we didn't type it. We didn't write this. So anyway, there's pros and cons to it, especially with a heading like that. It could be somewhat misleading, but at the same time, still all ladders back up. It's one alternative, like we're responsible for that just as much as anything as well. And then from a paid point of view, D2C is not a big part of our business. It's only 10% of the business. Look, anyone can do D2C, but they can't get into the accounts that we can get into. So I was like, let's lean into that, spend our money there and spend money on people, give people jobs, and support our accounts properly. So it's, we haven't got an endless pool of money. We're not a big corporate behemoth, so we have to decide what we do and where we go. So yeah, there's media awareness, and then Instagram's been the focus, and we're, pretty much boomers on TikTok right now and trying to figure that out, or hire some young kid. I see some young kid that knows it. I actually have this girl staying at my house, and last night at dinner I was like, I heard, I felt really old saying this. I'm only 38, by the way, but I was like, I heard that kids don't even use Google anymore. They search TikTok first. And she's like, yeah, you're an idiot. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm like so behind the eight ball.
Your age around dinner table. It's true though. It's like the most popular search engine.
Yeah. Well, I went dark yesterday and now it's back on in the US. So probably still need to put some time and effort into it. But anyway, so look, we have everything turned on. I think press is interesting. I don't know what the media landscape looks like for PR moving forward. I think you can spend a lot of money and waste a lot of money on it, and I think there's a lot of benefits to it as well. The more that I can build relationships with journalists will get you the stuff that you need. People write about people they like just as much as you can pay for it. So yeah, that's how it happens. Like the Rob Report article where the US Rob Report article where they came down and shot the facility and had an editorial on us. That just came from inviting Cherie to the 11 Madison Park dinner. She just loved it. She was like, I didn't want to come, but because it was non-alcoholic, but free dinner at AMP, I'll take that. And then she was like, I wasn't expecting this. And yeah, so anyway, and then we become really good friends. So look, I think the dinners and things like that are really valuable. But again, you sometimes, especially if you're launching a market, you need a PR agency to help get those bums on seats that you need as well at the start.
You talked about investing in your team. So I want to know the makeup of your team. How many people, what capacities are they working in?
Sure. So we've got 15 in Australia in the head office, and then we've got 3 in the US at the moment. Probably about to add another 5 to 6 in the US, probably in the next 3 months. Because we're opening so many new states. So when we open a state, we'll put someone into there. So we call them market managers, and they basically sit across sales and marketing, and they're based in the city, the major city, or where the culinary things are happening. And then they're there to get accounts, help support distributors, all that sort of stuff. So that's the US business. And then we're about to put someone into the UK across the sales and marketing function, but London's is pretty simple because you can go to Shoreditch or East London and walk around and hit 30 accounts really quickly, where it's like, it's not a spread out. Like LA is obviously a nightmare. New York, you can get it done in a similar way. So same as San Francisco. And then, Melbourne's the East Coast here. So Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, people there. And then we have about 5 people in the operations team. So that's to the 3 chefs and then 2 people to operationally move the things in and out as cheap as possible. And then there's a head of sales here in Australia. So he's just been promoted to head of APAC, actually. So APAC being Asia Pacific. So that's going to cover Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan. We just went in Korea. We're just going in Thailand, New Zealand as well. So APAC for us is, if you're a UK business, you go into Europe. For us, we can go into Asia. And then China at some point this year as well. Under me, my right-hand man is the Chief Growth Officer. And then on the other side of that is Kate, the CMO as well. So they're the only 2 that have the C-suite title. And I think what I really believe in is having no middle management, but having really good people at the top in that, whether they got a C-suite title or not, they basically act and behave like that with like a CFO as well. And a lot of people hiring really good people and smart people that can roll their sleeves up. And, the more that we can get people to be really clever and do multi-functions in the business means it's the more money that we have to spend on getting the brand out there. And that's what I try to do the most. But also having people on fair wages, really good living conditions, and in key markets that we need to support as well.
The CGO role is fairly new for you, right?
Yeah, so it was, our CMO was going on maternity leave, and it was her second time going on maternity leave, and she was like, I want to put a mat leave cover in. And I was like, last time was a disaster. Absolutely not. They're not fully invested in the business. There's a timeline on it. I was like, I'm going to hire someone that sits across commercial and marketing for us, and and they can look after the function and the team in the meantime while you're gone. It was a bit of an arm wrestle to get that over the line and see eye to eye on it. But I was like, I don't like pulling rank or pulling the calls, but on that one I had to. And it turned out really well. So Ben came and joined the business. He's ex-Treasury Wines, but he was CMO of basically the Southern Hemisphere for Treasury. We hadn't had anyone with wine experience in the business as well, like margins and expectations and how do you win in here and all those sorts of things. And also part of growing the business where I was the CEO, GM, running all functions, had all these line managers reporting into me, which they still do. And I'm still very active and know everything that's going on. But it made me, I started to like go, oh shit, what's going on here? I've got a blockage somewhere. And then that's when I went and got tested for autism and ADHD because I thought I had a blockage because I was like, I'm either a complete dick or I've got a blockage here. Anyway, turns out I got the, depending on, blockage is kind of a bit of a bad word. But anyway, I was like struggling with the size of the team and as it was growing. So I found out that in 2022, March, persevered for a lot of the year, but started to realize that I was really like, the business was outgrowing what I could do in terms of management and keep everything going. So the CGO thing, I was like, look, I need a good steady set of hands. And also I'm just like a maniac sometimes. So I call him the chaos controller. So I'll go out and create all these problems. And then I have the guys underneath me that go, I just say yes to everything. And then even if we don't, as I said from the start, I haven't changed that. So yeah, we can do that. And then we'll figure it out when we say yes. Once we get we'll deal with the problem once we get the problem. So anyway, Ben's been really great for that. And yeah, it's just sophisticated the business a bit more, but also wanted to make sure that we kept the startup roots as well. And just like, we don't want to have be corporate about anything and have meetings about nothing and okay, let's an agenda for the next meeting and all that sort of stuff. So, I still my ideal situation is that no one has a paid Zoom account and it has those timers on it for 40 minutes. And if you go past that 40 minutes, the meeting ends. And it's just like, if you're talking for more than 40 minutes, you're talking shit. So
we're in trouble. 53 minutes in. I'm just kidding.
You got 10 minutes to go over, stick to the agenda and get on with it. So anyway.
So I think that shows us a beautiful amount of awareness. And I like that. So you're a serial entrepreneur. We talked about that earlier. And as we sort of try to finish this episode, can you tell us about a failure or a collection of failures that you endured and maybe informed this endeavor or future endeavors that we don't know about yet?
Yeah. So most of the failures you have in business, they shouldn't be treated as a failure to start with. They should be treated as a learning. And that's the best thing and advice that I can give to anyone is like, you should make mistakes. You should stuff things up. And you have to get on with it because generally your life's on the line or your family's life on the line or there's other families' lives on the line. So you need to just deal with it. You can't bury your head in the sand and not get your hands dirty. So you just have to do that. And my biggest probable learning is that over the time, and I never had a job, so I wasn't even in knew how to work in a team or a business. Like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I found out what time in loo was. I was like, what the hell is that? So anyway, I hadn't had that experience. And then basically what I realized is that as I hired more sophisticated people into the business to help out, I really put them on a pedestal quickly. And there was this like honeymoon period and fell in love. I'm like, this guy's a genius, or this girl's a genius. Like, this is amazing. And I became too trusting and I got burnt quite a few times from that. Mm-hmm. So I would just say that, like, be really careful about falling in love with people and setting boundaries, because I didn't do a very good job of that. I do it a lot better now. Like, to the point where it's just like, you don't know where I live. I will never be social with you. Like, I don't like it, but it's just what's working for me right now. It feels a little bit unnatural, but I think that's probably one bit of advice to do. And I think the other bit is, I think if and when you get like a big chunk of money, be really careful with it, because it's actually really easy to get the rug pulled on you from follow-on investment. Yeah, it'll be fine and things are flying and 3 months we'll get the round done and all those sorts of things. I just don't think it's the reality. And you also spend a lot. When you start spending a lot of money, you really lose sight of actually what you're spending it against and the metrics that you're measuring it against. So an example of this is that we are in the funding round now, so we had to do a lot of cutbacks. And it literally changed not one bit of the business. We had the biggest quarter we've ever had with no marketing dollars spent. And one of my learnings from that is like, and maybe in non-alc, is like, I don't know if you can spend marketing dollars and outspend the consumer pickup of what the category is doing as well. So there are probably a couple of things that I probably learned the most, is that they say money's tipping fuel on the fire, and I don't know if it always is. It's more about what you're actually doing and how you're showing up. And I think you need to be really careful with it. It's probably my two things that I've learned the most.
Those are brilliant. So last question. What are your predictions for non-alcoholic beverages? And so what do you think is going to struggle and what do you think is going to thrive in the coming years?
Yeah, good question. I think there's going to be a lot of people still coming into the category. It feels like there's at least 2 or 3 a week that I hear about or it happens with. I think that the can format is the shiny thing to try to get consumers and customers. So ready to drink is definitely what people are thinking is the way to get trial happening. We're ready to serve, so being served in really nice glassware and elevated. I think ready to drinks, what will happen is it'll become so noisy and so crowded that everyone will go, I'm going to pivot to cans. And you won't actually get anything done, because then you're sitting next. How do you know that Poppy is different from what you're doing? And why are you more expensive price in the can? Just don't know if you can premiumize. I think the whole overall category needs to premiumize. I think that as more consumers come into it, I think the spirits may have some challenges with having a non-alcoholic back bar at home is probably for a real enthusiast. So yeah, they can go into a can and be ready to serve and easy to take to a barbecue and all those sorts of things. But yeah, I think there come a couple of the things to watch out for, and they may go boom or bust. So definitely some will boom 100%, and some will pop from doing it. I think funding's pretty tight. So I think some people that got funding may get themselves into a bit of trouble. And I think some brands are really well funded as well, and they'll be the ones that I think it'll jump this year. And then my other probably prediction is that buyers in national chains, so your Whole Foods and your Sprouts and everything, the NA sets will get a lot bigger. So And I think that'll happen generally, and availability in the US will become pretty large, I think, over the next sort of 12 to 18 months are probably my predictions of what I see happening. And then I think there'll be a wave of non-alc. So Ben Branson's just released Silver, getting great reviews, great acclaims, ready to serve. And it's in a brand home, all those sorts of things. There's a couple of brands in the UK, they've got brand homes and they're doing all those sorts of things. So I think that some of the guys, obviously I have a bias on this, but I think that the credibility and transparency and all those sorts of things will be the ones that win in the end, when they can show what they're doing and really engage with consumers and customers.
Absolutely. Well, Aaron, this has been a very enjoyable conversation, and I could listen to you talk for another hour, but we have to end it there.
Thank you for having me.
For coming on the Business of Drinks.
Thanks for having me. It's been awesome. I really appreciate your questions. They're actually really good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Is your drinks brand looking to start or expand import and distribution?
Whether you're seeking to enter new markets or you're unhappy with a current distributor and desiring a better fit, you should know about Swig Partners.
Founded by industry experts Eric Siegelbaum and Amy Troutmiller, Swig takes the guesswork and the legwork out of distribution strategy. Swig helps brands and distributors find the right fit for long-term relationships and sales success.
US-based importers and distributors should reach out too. With Swig, they can explore new products for free. And brands, you can get $100 off by mentioning Business of Drinks. Find out more at swigpartners.com/business of drinks. That's swigpartners.com/business of drinks. Welcome to Last Call. I'm here with Erica, and we are currently discussing those brands and products which we are currently enjoying out in the market. Erica, what are you liking out there?
Yeah, so I have a trio of non-alcoholic products, and I did not do dry January, but I have gotten a lot of really interesting samples in that I've been super excited to try and enjoy. First up is Van Shaw. So Van Shaw is a non-alcoholic spirit. It's very aromatic and complex, styled as a dark spirit. You can think of it sort of almost like a dark rum or like cognac in its richness and how it's meant to be sipped. So this is a product that fuses saffron, neroli, and galangal, which are all Indian spices. And the founder, Sharon Ball, who is from the Netherlands and her family is originally from India, she created this spirit. She worked in a lot of Bev Alc for innovation portfolios, but she wasn't a drinker, and she found that there was like nothing that she really liked to drink. All those seltzers were getting boring over time. So she decided to create sort of the flavors of home in a spirit. So those key flavors, the saffron, neroli, and galangal, which is like kind of gingery, it really creates this like spicy, aromatic, complex spirit that also has functional properties. So like anti-inflammatory, mood enhancing, digestive benefits, like all of these sorts of things. It's really different than anything else that I have tried in the non-alcoholic space. And it's not yet in the US. It's coming soon, apparently this year. It will be coming onto the market in the US. Currently, it's available in Europe and in Canada. But this is a product that I'm super excited about because I feel like it breaks new territory in the non-alcoholic space. So that's one. The second is Almave, which is here. And as probably most people know, this was co-founded by Lewis Hamilton, the F1 driver. So as you can imagine, it has a lot of money behind it, and co-founded also by the spirits company Casa Lumbre. Predictably, yes, big budget. Pernod Ricard took a minority stake in it last year and is helping to expand it into global markets. But I'm a tequila lover, and this is a agave-based non-alcoholic spirit. And it's the first one I've tried that really tastes to me like tequila, or like something similar to tequila, with those discernible agave notes, like that sort of sweet grassiness that you get that I really enjoy. So that is another product that is really coming through for me. And last is Wilderton. So here is their citrus. They have a new citrus aperitivo. And Wilderton is an Oregon-based non-alcoholic distillery. And then this product, it accompanies, they have a product that is very similar to Campari, but it's called Bittersweet. And this is sort of like a complement to that. So, if you've gone down like the Campari road and you really enjoy that product, like I do. I drink it with seltzer or with like a non-alcoholic wine in there, like a sparkling wine, if I want to make more of like a spritz. But I drink that a lot. And after a period of time, like I kind of was thinking, gosh, I wish they would come out with a new product, a new flavor profile. And indeed, what landed on my doorstep, but this new citrus. So the citrus is really interesting to me because it's something in a bitter profile that I haven't really had before, of like super lemony, kind of yuzu-ish, blood orange, but like in a new expression that feels like definitely fruitier and could go really well with like, some NA gin or even high octane gin to make some like interesting long drinks. So I do think that what I find interesting in this product is like it feels like it's breaking new territory. I think as we move into the future of the non-alcoholic category, yes, we will have analogs, and the analogs that get better and better, like Almave. But the things that make me super, super excited is the things like Van Shaw and like this Wilderton orange citrus aperitivo, which feel to me like they're breaking into new categories and new territory and entirely new flavor expressions that do not have analogs. So yeah, that's what's been getting me excited.
First on my list is Sango. This is a South African agave spirit. So it's kind of an analog to a tequila. They make a Blanco and a Reposado. I'm currently enjoying the Blanco in something like a margarita. And it accomplishes a lot, right? It looks the part. It looks like an agave spirit in the bottle. It tastes clean. It tastes bright. It's got some spice. It's got some lime. It tastes like agave. Tasted blind, I would think this is tequila, which is a compliment. But it is from a distinctly different geography, which is exciting. Even more so, it's relatively affordable at this time where there are a lot of tequilas that are $50, $60, $70. This is, I want to say, the Blanco is in the mid to low 40s. So relatively approachable. So really having a lot of fun with that. The next up on my list is both what I am drinking in general, but also a plea, which is I am enjoying wine in half bottles, in 500 milliliter bottles where available. This is how I'm enjoying dry January is, my wife and I, we don't need a full size bottle. We will split a 375 milliliter can, and we wish there were more options available to us, both in retailers, but also from a supply side. One exciting thing that I hope will allow for more of this to happen is that the TTB recently introduced more allowable fill sizes for packages. So more wine and spirit bottles don't have to necessarily come in the typical 750 or 375. They can come in some alternative formats. So please, for the sake of me, my wife, my liver, we don't need full-size bottles. Making that available would be great. Last on my list, in Caroline's absence, I know she's fond of daiquiris. I am enjoying this rum This is Cherami rum out of Louisiana. They're calling it a Blanc. It is a Agricole-Style rum. So it's made from fresh pressed sugarcane juice out of Louisiana. And it is as delectable as anything that I've had from Martinique at a little bit more approachable an alcohol level. So at 43% than you typically find some of those higher proof ones from Martinique and such. And I like the packaging. It's kind of clever. It says exported from New Orleans. But this is lovely in a daiquiri. Lovely just with some soda water and a splash of lime. Really kind of brightening these cold winter days and giving me a little dose of sunshine in these colder months.
I love that. All great products. And I'm excited to try that rum agricole sort of riff. That sounds really delicious. And I love that exported from New Orleans. Super fun. Yay. Well, some exciting products. And yeah, if you are a brand who would like to be considered for our last call segments or for even potentially an entire episode, please reach out to us on all of our channels or podcast at Business of Drinks. We are always looking for new brands to feature, and we would love to consider yours. Thanks so much for joining us.